What if humanity is not the final form? Not biologically, not technologically, but spiritually. What if everything we call civilization, our morality, ambitions, definitions of success, even our ideas of good and evil, belongs to a creature that is still unfinished? This is where Zarathustra begins. After 10 years of solitude in the mountains, he descends toward humanity carrying a message that offers no comfort. He does not tell people they are perfect as they are. He tells them, man is something that must be overcome. Below the mountain, a crowd is gathered in a marketplace. They are waiting for a tightrope walker. Zarathustra looks upward. A rope hangs high above the people. Beneath it, an abyss. And suddenly the performance becomes something more. Zarathustra sees humanity itself. Behind man stands the animal. Ahead stands something humanity has not yet become. And between them, a dangerous crossing. Man is a rope stretched between animal and Übermensch, a rope over an abyss. The crowd does not understand. Why should humanity need to become something else? Humans have built cities, created art, written philosophy, studied the stars, mastered forces of nature that once terrified their ancestors. Surely humanity represents an achievement. Zarathustra does not deny this. His question is more dangerous. What if humanity began admiring itself too early? Perhaps overcoming what came before us does not mean we have reached what we are capable of becoming. This is where Nietzsche's idea of the Übermensch begins. It has often been misunderstood as a physically superior human, a ruler, or a biological successor. But Zarathustra's challenge is fundamentally about something else: self-overcoming, the ability to confront the values that created you and ask whether they deserve to create the person you will become. Every human being enters a world where many important questions already have answers. What is success? What makes someone respectable? What should you desire? What should you fear? What makes someone good? What makes someone evil? Long before we are capable of answering these questions ourselves, answers surround us. Family, religion, culture, tradition, society, the crowd. We inherit values almost as naturally as we inherit language. And most people never realize they inherited them. They simply call them truth. Zarathustra asks the individual to do something far more difficult than rebellion. He asks, can you examine the values that shaped you without immediately replacing them with another set of borrowed values? Because destroying old values is easy compared with creating new ones. Anyone can say, no, no to tradition, no to religion, no to society, no to authority. But once everything has been rejected, a terrifying question remains. What do you say yes to? Without an answer, freedom can collapse into nihilism. Nothing matters. Nothing is sacred. Nothing deserves sacrifice. Nothing provides direction. Zarathustra does not want humanity to remain there. The Übermensch is not merely the person who escapes old values. It represents the possibility of becoming capable of creating values, of giving direction to one's existence rather than waiting for existence to provide instructions. Above the marketplace, the tightrope walker finally steps onto the rope. The crowd becomes silent. One foot moves forward, then another. The rope trembles. The abyss remains beneath him. Zarathustra watches carefully. There could hardly be a better image. Humanity cannot return to what it once was, but neither has it necessarily become what it could be. It exists somewhere between inheritance and creation, between what nature produced and what conscious self-overcoming might produce. That is why Zarathustra calls man a bridge. A bridge has value. A bridge may be extraordinary, but a bridge exists because something lies beyond it. The greatest danger, then, is not simply that humanity might fail to cross. There is another possibility. Human beings might become comfortable on the bridge. They might build houses there, create entertainment there, make themselves safe there, and eventually forget that the bridge was ever supposed to lead anywhere. Zarathustra looks at the crowd beneath the tightrope. They want happiness, safety, comfort, a life protected from unnecessary suffering. And none of these desires seems evil. That is precisely what makes the next part of Zarathustra's warning so disturbing. Because the opposite of the Übermensch is not a monster. It is not a tyrant. It is not a destroyer. It is a human being who has finally become completely satisfied. Nietzsche gives this figure a name. The last man, Zarathustra, looked at the crowd. He had spoken of humanity as a bridge, of self-overcoming, of becoming something greater than what already exists. But the people did not celebrate. They wanted something simpler: comfort, security, happiness. So Zarathustra gave them another vision of humanity, not the Übermensch. Its opposite, the last man. The last man is not cruel. He is not dangerous. He conquers nothing, creates nothing great, risks nothing important. He simply wants to be comfortable, a little pleasure, a little entertainment, enough money, enough security, enough distraction to avoid difficult questions. And then he says, "We have invented happiness." At first, this sounds like success. After all, what is wrong with wanting a peaceful life? Nothing. Nietzsche's warning begins only when comfort becomes humanity's highest ambition, because almost everything capable of transforming a person demands uncertainty. To create is to risk failure. To love is to risk loss. To think independently is to risk isolation. To pursue something extraordinary is to risk discovering that you are not yet extraordinary enough to achieve it. The last man refuses that price. He does not want to fall. So eventually, he stops climbing. Zarathustra looks upward. The tightrope walker is still crossing above the marketplace. Every step contains danger. That danger gives the crossing meaning. Yet the crowd below wants a world where falling becomes impossible. And Nietzsche asks, what kind of human being would such a world eventually create? Perhaps civilization could become enormously advanced, while humanity itself became smaller. Machines could eliminate difficult labor. Medicine could extend life. Technology could provide endless entertainment. Society could become safer and more comfortable than anything previous generations imagined. But one question would remain. For what? What will humanity do with everything it has created? Will greater freedom produce greater human beings, or simply greater comfort? This is the conflict between the last man and the Übermensch. The last man asks, how can I avoid discomfort? The Übermensch asks, what must I overcome? The last man wants certainty. The Übermensch accepts becoming. The last man inherits values. The Übermensch creates them. One seeks satisfaction, the other transformation. Zarathustra turns toward the crowd. He expects them to understand the warning. Instead, someone shouts, "Give us this last man." Others begin laughing, then cheering. They want the comfortable human, the satisfied human, the human who no longer needs dangerous dreams. Zarathustra watches them in silence, and suddenly his greatest fear becomes clear. Perhaps humanity will not be destroyed. Perhaps something far stranger will happen. Humanity will survive. It will become safer, richer, more comfortable, more entertained. And eventually, it may stop asking what it could become. Above the marketplace, the rope still hangs over the abyss. Zarathustra does not want humanity to remove the rope. He wants humanity to become worthy of crossing it. The marketplace slowly became quiet. Above them, the tightrope walker continued across the rope. Behind him was one tower. Ahead, another. He could not remain in the middle forever. Neither, Zarathustra believed, could humanity, but there was something important he wanted the crowd to understand. The Übermensch was not a destination someone could simply describe. Zarathustra could not hand them a list of rules, because the moment he did, they would become followers again. They would replace one authority with another, one morality with another, one commandment with another, and that would miss the point entirely. The question was not, how do I become the Übermensch? The deeper question was, what in me must be overcome? Perhaps fear, perhaps resentment, perhaps the need for approval, perhaps values inherited but never examined, perhaps a desire to remain comfortable rather than become capable of something greater. The answer would not be identical for everyone, because self-overcoming cannot be mass-produced. Zarathustra looked toward the crowd. Humanity had spent thousands of years transforming the world around itself. Forests became cities. Darkness became electricity. Distance became communication. Disease became something increasingly understood and fought. But perhaps the next transformation would require something different, not conquering the world outside, but confronting the world within. Because what would be the point of creating extraordinary technology while remaining governed by ancient fears? What would be the point of reaching other worlds if humanity carried the same resentments with it? What would be the point of becoming more powerful without becoming capable of deciding what that power should serve? The Übermensch, therefore, represents a challenge, not superiority over other people, but overcoming oneself, again and again, without declaring the current version finished. The tightrope walker moved closer to the other side. Zarathustra watched him. Then he looked back at the crowd. Perhaps humanity's greatest achievement would not be becoming perfect. Perhaps it would be refusing to believe that it already was. This is why Nietzsche's idea remains unsettling. It removes one of humanity's most comforting assumptions, that we are the destination. Perhaps we are not. Perhaps we are a transition, a bridge between what consciousness has been and what it might someday become. And if that is true, then the greatest danger is not failure. It is satisfaction. The moment humanity looks at itself and says, "This is enough." The moment comfort becomes more important than transformation. The moment we stop asking what lies beyond the person we already are. Zarathustra turns away from the marketplace. The crowd remains behind him. Some laugh, some reject him. Perhaps one person understands. That is enough, because Zarathustra did not descend from the mountain to tell humanity what it should become. He came to leave humanity with a far more dangerous question. What if the human being standing here today is not the answer? What if he is only the beginning?